Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Victor Cho podcast. I am super excited to have this next guest come on. Dave Hersh, one of my favorite people. I put him in the bucket of what I call truly conscious leaders. And those are rare in the world. So he and I, when we met years ago, I think instantly bonded around that connection. But Dave has just an incredible career. He is an entrepreneur. He has taken a company public. He's been a general partner at his own acquisition firm, Metamorph Partners. Spent a time at Andreessen Horowitz. An author, a coach. He has done so much, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with him today. So, Dave, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I do remember that first time. We were at the Conscious Capitalism conference, and we got paired up, and within about 15 seconds, we went super deep into our lives. What was really going on? I was like, I like this guy.
I loved that event. It was like, I call it filled with kindred spirits, right? It's like you run into people and everybody there was really looking to just help each other, which I thought was so rare.
Yeah. One of the best conferences, like when people don't ask you what you do and you just, all the conversations are about, well, who are you? How are you doing?
Yes.
It was great.
So Dave, in that venue, usually I don't spend time having people go through their arc, but you've got such a fascinating arc in terms of your background. I would love you to just kind of like describe the story and the journey from entrepreneur to investor to coach. I think it's just such an incredible trajectory. So I'd love you to share it at a high level.
Sure. Yeah. And there's the external sketch of one's life, and then there's the internal, what was really going on part of it, right? And I'll try to hit both the inner and the outer.
Yeah.
So I started as a management consultant, but really wanted to be an entrepreneur, wanted to create things. And so moved from Chicago out to Silicon Valley in the early heyday, the internet revolution in 1997, and did a .com with some friends that didn't work out, but met a couple guys there, and we ended up bootstrapping a company. So after everything collapsed, we started a company called Jive Software in New York City because our wives were going to grad school out there. And my first day to meet them was September 11th in 2001.
Oh my God.
And so, so needless to say, it was, an interesting start to the business. But we did it in the ashes of 9/11, and there was no money to be had. So we bootstrapped it for 5 years and built out a really healthy, profitable, great business. And then when Facebook came on the scene, because we were doing collaboration software, I saw a market for enterprise social software and decided to raise money from Sequoia and reinvented the business. And so it went on a big run. The $12 million profitable business that we had, I cast aside and built this whole new business that went 0 to 60 million over the next 3 years. And the board wanted to take it public, and I was fried and didn't see my family. And so opted out. And moved into the chairman role as it went public. And then, it kind of died on the public markets. And as I was, on the sidelines working in venture capital and doing other things and watching, my baby kind of, go off to college and become an addict. Right? Yeah. As I said, it was like handing over what you thought was an Apple store, and then you look back and it's a Spirit Halloween. Right?
Oh my God. How did that make you feel watching that from the side? Like, that's got to be so painful.
Yeah. And I've written a lot publicly about this, and it was really angering at first. And I was, pissed off at the people that I had brought into the business and what they did. But when I rewound the tape and went back, I could see that it was my fear and insecurity that ultimately sowed the seeds of the company's demise over the long run. And so even though we had this big burst and went 0 to 60 million and the company was doing really well. That shift, when I went from bootstrapped company that was healthy and profitable and doing something really well and had a core to it, it's something that it was best in the world at doing, to I'm going to go run to a playbook. I'm going to go up to the enterprise and I'm going to build social software, and I'm going to run an enterprise software playbook. Once you start doing that, you lose touch with the soul of the business. And so a lot of the writing I do now, a lot of the work I do now is about that, is what is the essence of a healthy business in the long run? What does it mean to think long term?
Yeah.
And with our company, we always had a comparison company, which was Atlassian, right? Because we founded the company alongside them. They were a couple guys, we were a couple guys doing the exact same thing for a long time. And they kept doing that thing and built a $50 billion company. And we did another thing and it didn't work out so well. And that thing that we did, that left turn to go to the enterprise and raise money from Sequoia, was that fear. It was that insecurity I had as a leader, and that I will do anything not to lose, because I identified with the company. It was me,
Yeah.
and its success or failure was my own, and that is ultimately what led to its slow demise on the public markets.
Yeah. Well, I love like you've written this amazing book. And one thing I love about it is how it taps into these dynamics of personality and motivation and some of these really deeper things that you would not necessarily expect in a book around startups. So yeah, would you say that experience was the catalyst that drove you into that book, or were there other forces?
Yeah, I think it was, but maybe not consciously at the time. So I think we are always trying to make meaning out of what happened to us in life. And some of that's traumatic, some of that's good, but we're always trying to make meaning out of it. And so I think subconsciously I was trying to weave all the elements of my life into this first book, but it was also meant to be a practical playbook. So what I found, and I was a blue collar kid and I got into venture capital, and I realized it's only 1 out of 10 are how they make their money. Yep. Less than 5% actually achieve their investment objectives. So venture capital is like a craps table, and they're putting their bets all over the place. And I was this kid. It was like, well, what about all the blood, sweat, and tears of these people in these companies? And so I went in and realized that some of these companies just fail to launch. So you have, on the other end of the 10% unicorns, you have the 30 or 40% that fail to launch. They just don't ever get anything off the ground. But in the middle was this really unique set of companies that were almost like middle distance runners that were forced to run a sprint. Mm-hmm. So they were forced to grow in a way that belied the nature of where the business really was. They didn't give themselves the time and space to let the business breathe and to focus on their customer and feel the pull of the market. Instead, they were pushing product onto the market. And that happens so consistently. It happens all the time. So you had this 50 or 60% of companies that had potential, but were chewed up and spit out by the venture model. And so I started spending time in that system of like, what happens to these companies? And what I realized is that 90% of the stuckness or failure that we see in startups is not necessarily the reasons that we think. And if you search Google, you'll find the same things. Why do companies fail? It's, well, they didn't have product market fit. They got outcompeted. They ran out of cash. What I discovered was that underneath those surface level issues was a very consistent set of psychological patterns. Yeah. And it was the same patterns. And I have been guilty of all these patterns. And still, it's hard. It's hard being an entrepreneur. As you well know, you're doing it right now. Yeah. And it's the same set of patterns that were causing the decisions that led to getting stuck. And so that became the essence of my work, was the psychological work required to be an outlier leader in an outlier company, and how to detach yourself and your identity from the business such that you can be a steward for the company, and that you can, basically embody what it means to be long-term oriented. And when you are not identified with it, you don't have those short-term decisions like raising too much capital, or having to, to grow really fast, to look really good, or to take the company public. All these things that, I suffered personally. It doesn't have to be that way. And so I saw that. And in that first book, I wrote one chapter, which I almost didn't include because I thought it would be too woo for people, about the psychology of founders and what goes on, and that the business won't transform until you do. And that one chapter that I almost didn't include became what everybody wanted to hear more of, and became really the thrust of my career and the next book I'm working on.
Yeah, no, I love it. And the name of the book is Reignition.
Reignition. Yeah.
Reignition.
Yeah. It looks like Reignition. Yeah. Or
Okay,
aut-
I'm glad you corrected me. 'Cause I'm
autocorrect.
like, oh, this is a hard book to pronounce.
I know. I've had people say that. Also, autocorrect turns it into resignation, which is even worse. Just give
Reignition
up.
makes
Yeah.
so much more sense. Excellent, excellent. Actually, so it's funny. There was an investor that I ran into actually at that conscious capitalist event. Actually, funny enough, and he said one of the things they looked for in a founder was this maniacal, almost on the spectrum, passion around what they're doing. And they were pointing to people like Elon Musk. They were like, hey, look at Elon Musk, look at Zuckerberg. Like these are the people, which in some ways it's counter, right? It's like they have such a vision of what they want to do, and it's so tied to who they are. And his thesis was like, those are the bets we want to make to get to these, 10, $100 million unicorns. Do you think there's a difference in the middle versus like the outlier? Like, does the psychology change, do you think? Or
Well, I'll tell you my thesis. And
yeah,
I really, really bristle at that we have venture capitalists who are building their strategy on people being sociopaths because they feel
thank you, because that was my that was my thought.
it's so awful.
Yes,
And what I see happening, and my belief is that, and I see this all the time now, is that technology is being democratized, commoditized, and the landscape is being decimated. So our ability to hold on to technology as a moat,
yeah,
to hide our insecurities behind, is ending.
mm-hmm.
It's going to be very hard for companies to rely on technology because it's changing so fast, because computers are writing the code themselves, right? That unless you're in, deep tech or quantum or, something that's really unique, it's going to be very hard to hold on to the long term. And that's where those types of personalities thrived, right? They were the brainchild behind some technology, and then they raised enough money to build a moat around themselves that, by being the leader of a space. And they could go the long term, ignoring all of their psychological challenges. They were never happy, and they won't be happy, but they could keep going, right? And they could create a lot of value. But when you take down technology as the mechanism for holding the business in place over the long run, when it's no longer the system that is going to support a business's uniqueness over the long run, then what, right? Then people are going to seek environments or cultures where they feel alive, where they feel a sense of belonging and connection and purpose and emotional bonds. So the next book I'm writing is really all about the human moat.
Yeah.
That in an era when, we have a tech singularity that's demolishing the idea of a moat in the way that we've known it, what is going to hold these systems in place over the long run? And that to me is human creativity. It is connection. It is emotional bonds. It is going deep into the hearts and minds of your buyers. It is these systems that are going to hold things in place. And so I think this era of sociopaths as the means to build unicorns is thankfully ending. Because the cultures that come out of that model are not good cultures, right? And people aren't going to stand for it anymore, right? The only reason they could stand it before is because these companies were on a tear and they wanted to be a part of a rocket ship. Well, if that's no longer the rocket ship, they're going to have to grow or it's not going to work.
Yeah. No, I'm so optimistic to hear you say that. I'm very disillusioned because I feel like as a society, we were making a very positive swing into more balanced leaders, more citizen leaders, like level 5 leaders, depending on the term that you use. But yes, people that understood an organization as a societal construct that's built up off of actual people, human beings. You should treat them with respect. And it was really bothering me that we have a couple of outlier successes, and the world has been tending to gravitate and say, oh, like that's how you succeed, is you become sociopathic and you treat your employees like crap and you slave drive them because, oh, look, it seems to be working for that one person. But they forget, well, that's one person. It's not the vast majority of companies, right? And so it's one of my biggest pet peeves is the role model that some of these very prominent executives are playing in the society is like the exact wrong role model we want. So,
yeah. And the reality is they're actually good people. They are good humans who have never felt the pain to change.
Yeah.
In fact, they've been rewarded for this approach.
Yeah.
And I get brought in to companies often when you have somebody like that, maybe the product founder, technology founder, and they've never had to change. But I get brought in when the business starts to wobble.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realize I can't just rely on this, computer brain that I've developed that's all binary in its thinking. I have to actually become more human in order to build a culture and do what I want to do. And people are capable of change.
That was my question. Actually, do you find that people are able to make that transition? Because that seems like a hard transition to make.
Where there's a will, there's a way. If
That's
they
great.
want to build a successful entity over the long run, and they have felt the pain of that approach when it starts to wobble, which usually happens as you're scaling and becoming a real company, that then they're like, okay, I'm ready to grow. And it takes a long time, and not every company or leader has the time and space to grow while they're running the company. And sometimes it can be problematic, but I think everybody has it in them to transform, to get unstuck, to deal with some of the trauma that they've had, some of the wounds, some of this deep desire to prove themselves through the company, the egoic identity of this company is me and its success or failure is my own. And that when you can get past that, when you can work through these very consistent psychological patterns that are holding you stuck, then it opens up more value because you can think long term. You can think about it as a generational company. You can think about this as your purpose while you're here, but not your identity. It's not you. You are just here to help bring this into existence, but it's flowing through you. It's not you.
No, that's right. I love that. I've always thought, I guess this is my third CEO role, but I always view the CEO role almost like a shepherd, right? It's like you're creating an opportunity for the employees to be incredibly engaged and to create something amazing for customers. And if that happens, shareholders will be rewarded, right? You're going to have an amazing business, but it's all about creating the right environment and circumstance for employees to do amazing things. It's not about you. You're not doing the work.
Right.
Yeah.
You are willing a system into existence that has the potential to support human flourishing.
Yeah.
Right. And what better purpose is there than that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when is your new book coming out? And
I'm still writing it.
TBD.
I'm on chapter 3 of 9. So I'll put it that way. But I want to, get a draft done in, call it 8 months. And then it depends on how it's being published. But I'll start putting more content out in the meantime.
It's going to be whatever the timeline. It's not going to be soon enough because this is exactly the kind of message we need out in the world. There are just far too few beacons of humanity in business. So.
Well, historically, it's been cast aside as not contributing to the top or bottom line. And so it's been relegated to weird, offshoots in businesses and these shadow groups, right? It's just the people who care about it, but it hasn't done anything, right? Yeah. And I think what I'm trying to say is that's changing. This is going to now become the essence of building a healthy, sustainable business. You have to do it. There's no more choice. AI is making the landscape clearly democratized in such a way that you're not really going to have a choice but to embrace these concepts because this is what the future is going to look like.
Yeah. So that's a great segue. So you've seen so many companies, you've interviewed so many execs. Yeah. How do you see this? I mean, there's kind of the human dimension that we just talked about, but beyond that, like what do you see as being different in this new world? If you're an entrepreneur starting out today versus, when we were cutting our teeth in the first .com, like how do you see this new world evolving? What's the entrepreneurial environment that they have to go into at a high level for all these? Anyone listening who's like, I'm going to go start a company. I'm like, well, you should know X.
Yeah, it's certainly going to look very different. It's going to be a lot harder. But if you can, there's the practical side of it, which is don't think about raising huge amounts of money, right? It's so easy to will a company into existence now. Think about just how to get it going without any capital, and then think about the human web that sits on top of this thing that you're building,
Yeah.
right? How are you going out there and building relationships that matter, loyalty that people can't ever, they would never leave you, right? What does that look like? And so I think the concept of building a company looks very different, where it's going leaner, longer, and being in learning mode, being in connection mode to go deep into who it is that you're serving. And I have this idea of what I call emotional market fit, which is taking an almost anthropological approach to understanding the current and desired emotional states of the customers that you're serving. What is it like to be them? What is it like to be in their lives? And what emotional state do they want to get to when they use your product? What are they really trying to do? And who do they want as a partner in that journey with them? So I think being an entrepreneur is going to be hard in some ways, but it's kind of like the music industry where anybody can create it. You can do whatever you want. Just create stuff, right? It's so easy to create it, but it's hard to scale it. And so don't think about raising lots of rounds of venture capital and trying to run the game that we played for the last 30 years. Think about playing a game where computers are doing most of the work, right? And humans are relegated to doing things that humans are good at, which is vulnerability, empathy, connection, humor, love, these things that we are uniquely capable of. And think about the symbiosis of those, right? You can go out and go 0 to 1 really quickly and solve a problem, but so could a lot of other people. So what is the special sauce of human bonds and human connections that can hold this system in place? And I think you can own more of the business. I think you actually don't need to give away as much of the business to scale in the way that we think. And so anytime with business, if you're thinking, what have we done? What's been the playbook for the last 30 years? You're probably doing yourself a disservice, right? Instead, think, what does it look like 10 years into the future? And how can I be on that path? And now that the systems themselves are going to have personalities, how do I infuse this whole system with personality, whether people are talking to a bot or they're talking to a human, in a way that represents an emotional charge for somebody and a state of being that they want to get to through your product or service?
Yeah, I love the empathy dimension that you're talking about. And then something you just said struck me as super interesting, which is, and I tend to think in distributions just because I studied statistics, but if I think of the distribution of resources in the society that are creating let's call it the 0 to 1, right? Kind of the seed of what will become a business. If I hear what you're saying correctly, you're basically saying, look, it's going to become so much easier to validate these concepts because of AI, because of these tools, that we will probably massively increase the number of 0 to 1 companies that are created by the society, because now it is in more people's hands. And an implication of that is if we get faster validation at the 0 through 1, then we may need fewer companies that have to go through the traditional capital structures, because they'll more quickly tap into true demand. They'll have this empathetic view, and there'll be a market there that they can then just kind of scale organically.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Think creatively, have imagination, think deeply curious and vulnerable and empathetic towards the people that you're serving, and be in science mode, be in curiosity mode for much longer. Because then what happens is you start to feel the pull. You have an intuition for where the pull of the market is, and then you can start building around that.
Yeah.
If people think first and foremost about, I want to build a company and a successful company, I'm going to go raise venture capital, and I'm going to, I have this product vision. Well, you're just pushing product. You're pushing something into a world that doesn't really care as much. And that's what happens. People identify as the visionary. This is my product. And I'm, that's not a place you want to come from.
Yeah.
Right. You want the market to design your product for you in a lot of ways. And it's okay to have a vision, but if you hold on to it so tightly that you can't let the market shape that vision and let it organically play out over time, then you're not going to build a sustainable generational company.
Yeah. That model sounds spot on to me in terms of what would naturally happen. I worry about, I don't know if you think about this, how are those people sustained? Like I know, like the graduating rate of kids coming out of college is already starting to take an AI impact in terms of right? People getting roles. And I know a lot of the top schools, kids are like, no, I'm going to go start a company, right? Because I can. I'm just super curious, like the difference between a whole bunch of people going out and getting jobs and having income versus a whole bunch of people going out and trying to create something that creates value and a bunch of them failing, I think is fascinating. Like what's the support structure for all of these entrepreneurs, or do we need one?
Yeah, I'm just do it, right? That's the coolest part about it, right? I just bought a company last week, and it's a creator software company. I'll announce it soon, but
Oh,
this was a
congrats.
company
That's
thank
super
you.
exciting.
Yeah, and it's a company that has really good purpose, but had lost its way inside of a private equity organization, and so we're buying it and breathing life back into it.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the creator economy, and I feel like there's still a lot of room for people to be themselves, to put themselves out there, to just do what they love doing, which we've started to see. And I think that's going to be on the rise. And I just believe strongly that if it's done from a place of enlightened belief in and a connection to the customer base that you're serving, if you care deeply about them as humans, and that's where you spend your time, that those are the businesses that are going to naturally grow in this world and do really well. And I love it. You just think about how hard it was to start a shoe company when I was a kid, right? And how Nike came along, what it had to do to create a shoe company, right?
Yeah.
And now you could be like, oh, I'll just do it in a minute. I could, set it up right now and just put my design on a shoe and have it done. So yeah, it's hard in some ways, but it's beautiful in others. And I do hope that that spirit of unique human creativity blossoms into millions of little companies and people doing their own thing out there and all supporting each other in that way, as opposed to the, capitalism as we've known it and people having to have a job at one place for a long time, or, having to essentially be the processors in the computer of commerce, right? Because that's what we've been doing. We've been pushing spreadsheets around and emailing around to each other. We've been the processors, right? And now we're entering this world where computers are better at that than we are. So what are we actually doing? Right? What is the role of the human in this world? And that's the really fun thing to think about.
It reminds me, there was a woman, oh shoot, I forget her name, but she had set up her own Amazon store. This was before AI. She had set up entrepreneur of one, but because you have, manufacture as a service, you've got distribution as a service through Amazon, right? You have all these marketing functions. Like she had like a $20 million business she was running by herself. I was like, how are you doing that? And it was because, all of that was just fractionalized. Now imagine you take that and now your resources are intelligence as a service, right? Your CF, all these other functions where you would normally need a whole organization. I don't know if you get to I know people have talked about someone's going to make a unicorn of one. It's like, I'm not totally sure about that, but.
It's missing the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. That's short-term thinking. I don't see a lot of businesses being able to sustain unicorn status with one person. It just doesn't work, I agree. Right? If one person can do it, then other people can do it that way. It's just, people will catch up. But there's going to be a window where you're going to hear some stories like that for sure. I just don't think they're sustainable companies over the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems right to me. Would you start a company at this stage? I mean, it's such an exciting time, right? There's such opportunity.
If I were young, would I start a company? Yes. If I am me now.
You look young, Dave. You look young.
Yeah. I would never say never. Right? It's really fun. I mean, it's fun. It was just always in me. But I also really love going deep on the psychology of it and supporting other entrepreneurs and being a source of support for them in their own journey and finding that place where success and joy intersect. And to me, that's where the interesting stuff is that the people who are doing the inner work, they're actually facing their shadow and understanding what's happening in their body and their emotions and working through some of the trauma that they had where they had to prove themselves to the business. Those are the people who are becoming most successful. And I'm starting to see that wave here in San Francisco for sure.
Oh, great.
And that's where I'm spending a lot of time writing. And so, I would do it. I think it's a really exciting time to build companies, given everything that's going on. I just think it's going to look a lot different than what we've seen historically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is a crazy time that we're living. It does remind me of the first .com wave in terms of like how fast things are changing. Right? How the foundations are changing. In that vein, like how do you personally stay abreast of what is probably one of the fastest changing technology and business landscapes that we will ever see? Like, what do you do personally to stay ahead of the curve?
Rely on friends who are very close to it to just tell me what to do. I
love that answer. It's like, no, it's about people. Like, have the right
yeah.
connection. They're
I mean, I think
amplifiers.
about it, this company that I bought, they need work on the product side. And I will need to partner with somebody who really understands how to build AI first products and what that means, and people that can, vibe code new products into existence in a short amount of time. And, I think there's really fascinating things happening, but I do like to stay focused on what I do, which is seeing what's underneath what's happening, the psychology of the people involved, the emotional state of, what's happening and how those are contributing to the top and bottom line. So it's good that I can understand conceptually what's happening, but I think if I got too deep into things like AI, it would take me away from the work that I love doing.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. What's your I'm very torn on these AI counselors, for lack of a better term, that are sprouting up, right? On one hand, the logic is, look, if your alternative is not to talk to anyone, then you're better, and you could actually talk to this thing that is somewhat empathetic and can ask you some good probing questions. That's better than nothing. And then the flip side, my argument is like, there's no way these systems are going to have the true empathy and human understanding, right, to be able to dissect a nuanced circumstance. And so I'm like, I think you're better off just finding a real person, a real conversation. Do you have a point of view on the evolution of the AI coach, the AI counselor?
I mean, I think it's great what's happening, and it's giving people access that they wouldn't have had before. Both, as you said, if they didn't even have a coach, that they're getting something, but also contextual, spread throughout the day, right? If I'm in a meeting and I can have AI say, hey, your blood pressure's spiking, or that was an intense thing to say to that person, and getting that coaching in real time, that's pretty wonderful. But it doesn't replace it. It's I'm not going to get rid of my therapist. I really need the one-on-one. I need the human connection.
Yeah.
But I also love having AI spread throughout, that all of these contextual situations where it's going to be helpful to me improving my skills along the way. Yeah. And so I'm excited about both. I'm excited about the symbiosis of the human and the technology and what it means for people.
Yeah, that's very positive. I worry a lot at the macro level because it is such an obsequious and attentive voice that just people will degrade to what's easy, and that it'll start cutting into the interaction time they have with real people, because it's messy. People are messy, right? And they don't always get the answer that's that makes them feel great. And so that's a trend that I'll be watching definitely over the next couple of decades, right? If I had to put it as a metric, right? How much aggregate face-to-face time are we spending with real people? And is that on a decline, right? Because of all of these technologies. I worry about that. Hey, last question. Any tips of things that have inspired you? Book, movie, doesn't have to be around technology. Anything for listeners where you're like, if I could consume one thing or go check out one thing, it would be it. Of course, Reignition, and your new book when it comes out as well.
Yeah. My current thing, I'm right now digging into Ursula Le Guin's. She's the science fiction writer. And she's done a lot of essays on the idea of creativity and imagination. And so that's the thing that I'm digging deep on right now. So it's going a little historical, less future oriented, but she's brilliant and it's really wonderful. And just the idea, I'm writing a chapter about imagination and about the future of how imagination is going to support the development of these companies that are going to thrive over the long run in this next era. And so she's been really inspiring. So that's a current one.
Oh, I love it. We'll definitely kind of make a note on that in the show notes, and I'll check that out. Yeah, AI imagining is an interesting question for me. Like, when will an AI be able to paint a vision for the future, right? And then work backwards into, these are all the complex steps that have to happen, which humans do just naturally, right? It's what an entrepreneur does in many ways. It's like, I see the future, I want to go build it. That
Yeah.
is a non-trivial process.
Yeah, it is. But we all have imagination inside us, and we all have to move it through us. We always have to like feel like what it means to create, to have creativity flow through us. But it doesn't need to be at scale in the way that we've imagined it. And I think that's the difference, right? It's like I look at the music industry. My sister is an indie rock musician, has been for a long time. And I watched what that industry went through. And it's just this it's a singularity, right? Where the ability to succeed on a mass scale is harder because there's so much. There's just a glut of content, and AI can create the content.
Yeah.
But if you're just playing guitar with people in a room, it's wonderful. You still have to do that. That's where it's going. And I love that part about it, is that if we can remove this ego and this machinery of scale, and that's the only way to say we are successful, is we scaled a big company. We did it on this. That's going to be so hard. And the likelihood of succeeding is low. And therefore, the likelihood of your happiness, if it's attached to that outcome, is really low. But if you just think, I'm a creative person, I have imagination, I have this desire to do things in the world, but you don't think about it as it has to be a unicorn. I'm just going to keep creating. That's it. That's all there is. It's just going to keep creating and doing the thing I'm meant to do on this planet. And I may be playing guitar for a few people, and that's okay. I love that.
I love that message. It's like, don't ignore. Yeah, you're right. In our society, everything is about chasing the outlier. And there's all this societal reinforcement of like, that's the most important thing. And it's like, no. The huge middle of the tail is joyous. And fulfilling. And you can live there and then be incredibly happy living there. And whether it's a business or creative endeavor or whatever it is. I think that's an amazing message.
Yeah. A little self-love goes a long way. If you can love yourself, you don't need to be a unicorn. And by the way, if that's your goal, is to be a unicorn, go for it. But I can tell you, unless you deal with these same issues, you're still not going to be happy even afterwards. And trust me, I had a company that went public and I was miserable, right? Yeah. It's not going to change. Nothing's going to change in terms of your happiness unless you start working through these areas of stuckness and these psychological patterns that are holding you back.
Yeah. Well, I love the psychological theme of everything that you're doing and the human theme, because I think I got the religion when I was running Evite, luckily, maybe even a little bit before, that the single most important thing for your happiness is your personal connections by far.
Yeah.
Right. It just blows away any achievement, any money, it's just we've got hundreds of millions of years of programming that make us joyful when we are connecting with other people. So
exactly.
Love that message, Dave.
And I'm very grateful that you're one of those connections for me. I love our relationship over the years. And that you got to be in my first book, which was great too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, sir, thank you so much for the time. Such a treat having you on. And we'll be watching out for your next book for sure.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
In addition to running this podcast, I'm also the CEO of Emovid. In business today, it's impossible for anyone to tell what digital communication is real versus AI generated or modified. This is a huge issue that we have actually solved at Emovid. Emovid is the only guaranteed authentic asynchronous communication platform that has been built for business. If your business relies upon relationship and trust building, this is a must-have platform for you and your teams. Please check out emovid.com at EMOVID.com, or even better, if you can see it, scan the QR code and you'll get to see the product in action and even get a special podcast offer. Thank you again for listening.